I was barefoot on the pavement, holding a wilted bouquet, when I realized he wasn't coming. It was 9:47 p.m. Our anniversary dinner reservation had been at 8. I kept checking my phone like it owed me an explanation, as if maybe it would confess what I already feared, that I'd pushed him too far this time. 3 months ago, I told Ethan I needed space to figure myself out. That maybe I hadn't lived enough life to know if he was truly my forever. He didn't yell. He didn't beg. He just stared at me like I'd cracked open a part of him he never wanted anyone to see. I thought I could hit pause. Do a little soul-searching. Maybe flirt with some freedom, dance on the edge of temptation, then come back to Ethan once I figured it out. But now he wasn't picking up. And I couldn't shake the feeling that this time, he'd figured something out too. Something I wasn't ready for. Before I tell you what happened next, make sure you're watching this alone. Because what you're about to hear might just change how you see love, freedom, and the line between the two. I used to believe that love could wait. That if someone was really meant for you, they'd still be there after you figured yourself out. Now I know how naive that sounds. Ethan and I met at a mutual friend's wedding in Portland. He wasn't even supposed to be there, filled in last minute for a sick groomsman. I'd noticed him the second he walked into the rehearsal dinner, tie undone, sleeves rolled up, laughing at some story that wasn't even that funny. I didn't believe in love at first sight. But I did believe in magnetism, and Ethan had this gravitational pull I couldn't fight. We started talking over whiskey sours at the bar, and by the time the dance floor emptied, we'd already made plans to meet up again. A month later, he flew to San Diego just to surprise me for my birthday. 3 months after that, I was spending more time at his place than mine. We weren't perfect, but it felt solid. Real. The kind of quiet, steady love that doesn't scream, it settles into your bones. And that terrified me. Because the world I lived in, my friends, my job, the influencers I mindlessly scrolled past every night, they all whispered the same thing. You're too young to settle. You haven't lived yet. That seed was planted by my best friend, Cass. Cass was magnetic in a different way, wild, untamed, unapologetically selfish. The kind of girl who booked flights without asking who'd feed her cat, who made heartbreak look glamorous, and who had an endless carousel of beautiful men who'd orbit her for a while, then vanish like smoke. She always said I was the wife type. And she said it like a warning. Ethan's sweet, she'd say while topping off my wine glass. But sweet doesn't mean right. I laughed it off at first. Ethan was sweet. Gentle. Predictable in the best way. He kissed my forehead when I was half asleep. Saved every movie stub from our dates. Knew the exact way I liked my coffee, iced, not too sweet, with oat milk and just the tiniest splash of vanilla. But over time, her words burrowed in. We'd be at brunch and she'd casually ask, "Aren't you curious what it would feel like to be wanted again?" Like, really wanted? Then came the real gut punch, "You're 26. This is the youngest you'll ever be. Don't waste your hot years being someone's wife." The worst part? I started to believe her. I started noticing things Ethan never did wrong before. How he never wanted to try new restaurants. How he watched the same shows over and over. How he never really partied, just preferred early nights and long drives. One night, after drinks with Cass and a few of her Tinder boyfriends, yes, plural, I came home to Ethan making pasta in his favorite sweatshirt. He looked up, smiled, and said, "You're late. Thought maybe you forgot about me." Something about the way he said it, light, but not really, cracked me open. Maybe I did, I blurted out, instantly regretting it. He paused. What's that supposed to mean? I didn't answer. Not that night. Not the next day either. But something had shifted. The next weekend, I told him we needed to talk. We sat on the balcony of his apartment, feet tucked under a shared blanket. He looked at me like he was bracing for a storm. I feel like I don't know who I am without you, I started. He tilted his head. Is that a bad thing? I nodded slowly. I think I need time. Space. Just to figure myself out. I'm not saying I don't love you. I do. I couldn't finish the sentence. He was silent for a long time. So, what does that mean? You want to break up? No. Just pause. Like a break. You want to hit pause on us, he repeated, like the words themselves were foreign. I just need to know that I've lived enough to choose you fully. Without wondering what I missed out on. He looked out into the night, the city lights reflected in his eyes. So, you want to see other people? Not exactly, I said quickly. Just explore. Feel free. Maybe travel. Maybe flirt. I don't know. His voice was so calm it scared me. You want me to wait while you try on other lives? I reached for his hand. He pulled away. Ethan, please understand. I love you. This isn't about not loving you. Then what is it about? I didn't have an answer. Not one that made sense. Not one that didn't sound selfish. He stood up, walked inside. I thought he needed space. That he'd cool off. That we'd talk later, hug it out, cry, laugh, maybe even sleep together. But that night, I left his place with a duffel bag and the worst feeling in my chest. I felt weightless, like I'd finally been given the freedom I thought I needed. But freedom didn't feel how I imagined. It felt cold. And quiet. And when I texted Cass that I'd finally done it, told Ethan I needed space, all she replied was, yes. Welcome to the fun zone. I should have known then, this wasn't going to be fun. It was going to break me. But the worst part? I hadn't even begun to see how far I'd fall. The first week without Ethan was strange, but bearable. I stayed at Cass's apartment, a mess of half-burnt candles, thrifted pillows, and wine bottles doubling as vases. She acted like I'd just graduated from some oppressive institution. We need to celebrate your emotional emancipation, she said, dragging me out to some rooftop lounge with neon cocktails and men who smiled too easily. The first guy who hit on me was wearing a Rolex and a smile full of lies. He asked what I did for work before I even sat down. I laughed too hard. He bought me a drink anyway. I told myself I was doing it. Living. Exploring. But every time I laughed, it felt hollow. Every time I flirted, I felt like I was pretending to be someone else, someone less anchored, less known. And every night, without fail, I'd check my phone hoping Ethan had texted. He hadn't. By day 12, the silence started to hum like a second skin. No "did you eat today" texts. No Spotify links to songs he thought I'd love. No photos of his dog looking like a loaf of bread on the couch. Nothing. I started posting more on Instagram. Cute outfits. Random mirror selfies. A boomerang of Cass and me clinking glasses. I wanted him to see me living. But he didn't like a single post. Maybe he just needs time, Cass offered, but even she sounded unsure. Then came the post. A photo of Ethan. Shirt rolled up, forearms smudged with paint, working on some mural in a community center. It was posted by someone I didn't recognize, tagged in a place I'd never heard of. So no, I didn't let it go. And maybe that's where everything started to break. The thing about quiet people is, everyone assumes they're harmless. That's what I used to think about Noah. That he was closed off, maybe cold, but ultimately neutral. I was wrong. He was calculating. He was curated. And when I started watching him more closely, not out of spite, but out of confusion, I started seeing patterns that didn't just make me uncomfortable. They made me furious. Like the team Slack channel. If a guy asked for help on a project, Noah would respond within minutes. Helpful. Polite. Even warm. If one of us asked? Nothing. Silence. Unless someone else chimed in first, usually a man, and then Noah would respond to him and completely ignore us. I watched it happen with Madeline, with Jenna, with myself. Over and over. It was subtle. Easy to miss if you weren't looking. But I was. So were the others. And eventually, the group chat we had, the unofficial one, just the women, started to fill with screenshots. Dates. Times. A running list of moments when Noah's behavior crossed the line between socially awkward and willfully exclusionary. It felt like we were building a case. Not because we wanted to destroy him, but because we wanted to understand why we felt so invisible around him, and if we were imagining it. We weren't. What pushed us to act wasn't even that big. It wasn't explosive or dramatic. It was stupid, honestly. A birthday cake. Theo brought in cupcakes for someone's birthday. Noah helped pass them out. But when he got to me, he paused. Then set the box down on the table and walked away. He didn't offer one to me. Or to Jenna. Or to Madeline. We stood there, looking at each other, unsure if we were supposed to laugh or cry. He just skipped us, Madeline said. Flat. And that was it. That was the moment. Not the skipped greetings. Not the ignored questions. Not the rejections, the silences, the chilling indifference. The cake. The most basic form of kindness. Withheld like a punishment. We decided to talk to HR the following Monday. Not a complaint. Not yet. Just a conversation. I remember sitting in the break room with Jenna that morning, sipping bad coffee and going over what we'd say. Keep it calm. Keep it focused. Don't use loaded words like discrimination. Don't make it about gender, even though it obviously was. Just say it's a pattern, I told her. Because that's what it is. We met with Erica, the HR liaison, right after lunch. We explained the behavior, the avoidance, the selective interactions, the emotional temperature shift anytime a woman entered the conversation. She nodded. Took notes. Asked neutral questions. She didn't seem surprised. That worried me. A few days passed. Then a week. Nothing changed. Then came the memo. All staff are reminded to be mindful of inclusive communication in the workplace. Please ensure your behavior reflects company values around respect and professionalism. No names. No direct reference. But we knew. And so did Noah. The next day, I walked into the break room while he was talking to Brian and Theo. They were laughing about something. A dumb viral video, maybe. When I stepped in, Noah glanced at me, paused, then walked out. Just like that. Theo looked confused. Did something happen? I shrugged. I didn't have words anymore. 2 weeks later, I was called back into HR. This time, Erica looked different. Guarded. Less kind. She said Noah had filed a concern. Not a formal complaint, but a statement. That he felt he was being watched. That female coworkers were monitoring his behavior and making him uncomfortable. I blinked. He's being uncomfortable? She nodded, without looking up. He says he's aware of how often you and a few others are analyzing his conversations. That you've created a hostile dynamic where he feels surveilled. He also said he's experienced misunderstandings in the past and is choosing to maintain firm professional boundaries as a result. That word again. Boundaries. A magic word that erases anything inconvenient. A shield for the cold. A polite way to say, I don't owe you kindness. But his boundaries only apply to women? I asked. Erica said nothing. She handed me a document instead. An acknowledgement form. No disciplinary action. But a written reminder about respecting the workplace comfort of all employees. I was stunned. We had receipts. Conversations. Evidence. He had discomfort. And somehow, we were the problem. After that meeting, the air in the office shifted. People started whispering. Jenna said she heard Noah had told Lucas that the girls are trying to get me fired. That we were unstable. Drama seekers. It didn't matter that we had quietly documented everything. That we had approached HR gently, diplomatically. It didn't matter that all we wanted was to be acknowledged like human beings. Noah had framed it differently. And once that narrative took root, everything began to rot. Lunches changed. Conversations dried up. Invitations started skipping us the way Noah always had. One afternoon, I passed the glass conference room and saw Noah with 2 supervisors. One of them was nodding. The other was laughing. And I knew, without hearing a word, that whatever we had tried to expose was being flipped. I went back to my desk, sat down, and stared at my inbox. There was a message from Erica. Please confirm a time this week to attend a mandatory professionalism and sensitivity workshop. Mandatory. For us. The irony of it all? He never said anything cruel. Never yelled. Never cursed. But his silence was a knife. His kindness was currency, and only the men had access to it. We tried to show the truth. Tried to bring the pattern to light. But in the end, all anyone saw was 3 women too emotional to handle the workplace. We weren't seen as wronged. We were seen as wrong. And I felt something inside me start to break. Not because of what he did. But because no one cared enough to stop it. You don't realize how fast your reputation can crumble until people stop meeting your eyes in the hallway. It didn't happen all at once. That would have been easier. It was slower. Meaner. Like the lights in the office were dimming, one by one, until you were the only one left in the dark. A week after the sensitivity workshop, I stopped getting looped in on projects I normally led. 2 weeks later, I wasn't invited to Maddie's Friday happy hour, the one I used to help organize. By the end of the month, I was eating lunch alone in my car, staring at my steering wheel and wondering how it had come to this. They didn't fire us. That would have made too much noise. Instead, they made us invisible. HR closed the situation with a formal statement about boundaries and mutual respect. Noah remained in his position. And somehow, we were the ones with a black mark in our files, gently worded, but they're all the same. Jenna stopped speaking to me first. She said it in the nicest way, I just think we made too much of it. He wasn't hurting anyone. I wanted to scream. But what was the point? It didn't matter that we were right. That we had documented his behavior. That we'd approached it carefully, cautiously. What mattered was that we'd spoken. And that made us dangerous. I bit my lip so hard it hurt. I'm not that person anymore. He looked at me then, really looked. I believe you. But that doesn't mean we can go back. A tear slipped down my cheek. So that's it? He paused, then said something I'll never forget. You didn't break us when you asked for space. You broke us when you assumed I'd wait. Silence filled the room. I still love you, I whispered. I know, he said. And I'll probably always care. But I'm happy now. And I'm not willing to lose that again. I stood slowly. Walked to the door with the box in my arms. He didn't stop me. Didn't ask me to stay. Didn't say goodbye. That night, back in my tiny apartment, I opened the box. Half my books, a framed photo I didn't remember him taking, and one note on top. You were the right person. Just not at the right time. I cried myself to sleep. Again. Months passed. Jade and Ethan went public with their relationship. I muted their accounts. My friends, the ones who once told me I needed to experience more, slowly faded into the background, off living their chaotic lives while I stayed behind with the pieces of mine. I went to therapy. I started writing. Journaling, mostly. Turned some of it into a blog. One of the posts went viral. I asked for space and lost the love of my life. The comments were brutal, some sympathetic, most not. But I deserved all of them. Because that's the thing no one tells you about figuring yourself out. Sometimes, by the time you do, the people you love have already figured out they're better off without you. And the space you asked for becomes a wall they never let you climb again. So here I am. Wiser. Lonelier. More honest than I've ever been. And if you're listening to this, thinking about asking for a pause, a break, a little space, make sure the person you're asking to wait has a reason to. Because you might blink, and they might be dancing in someone else's living room while you sit alone with a box of books and a memory you can't put back together.